Welcome to the Unlist. We are in the middle of December, so I might as well do a video about spicy scents, right? Yeah, that's something we haven't talked about in a while. Spicy fragrances. In particular, my spicy fragrances. The way I do spicy, right? How I handle spicy. So, without further delay, let's just get right into it. I don't need a long exposition about spicy perfume, right? fairly common topic. Now, I will say that I do spicy different from most people because these days, spicy usually also means sweet. And I'm not particularly fond of big, sweet, spicy fragrances, because then you start moving into dessert territory. And I like that to a limited amount, but typically when I do spicy, I like it to be warm and spicy or dry and spicy. You can have a little bit of sweetness in there as necessary to round out the composition, but I don't want like creme brulee with cinnamon on top. That's just not something I'd ever want to put on my skin. So, unfortunately, that means if you're a fan of things like Stronger With You and all the various Armani Code flankers and 1 million flankers, which go in that direction, you probably don't want to watch this video, because you're not going to get any of that here. But you will see some favorites that I've mentioned in other videos, like my gourmand videos and other such things. So some of you who've been watching this channel for a while, you're going to be like, oh yeah, he's bringing that bottle out again. Okay. But yeah, we're just going to run through some of my spicy fragrances, things I like to wear when it's cold outside, what I want to do spicy. And I will start with a little known selection. It is actually my scent of the night while I make this video. And it is called Number 63 by Pre de Provence. And to be fair, Pre de Provence is better known for soaps. They're mainly a soap maker. They do have a lot of shaving accessories too. And they launched a full line of fragrance, body wash, lotion, shave soap, just the whole works, right? For men, obviously. And then launched an eau de toilette to go with it. And this is that fragrance. So if you like the smell of this, you can load up on products. You can get aftershave balm, shave soap. There is pre-shave oil / beard oil. There is hand and body lotion. There is bar soap on a rope you can get as well. And of course, shampoo / body wash. You can get all that stuff. You can go nuts. And then also have this. To me, the smell of this it's very interesting, first of all, because it's trying to be a couple different things. It's trying to be a tobacco fragrance, but it's also trying to be a leather fragrance, and it's also trying to be a spicy fragrance too. So you get like this plum tobacco accord, which is going to remind you a bit of something like the old Michael for Men, but not as animalic as that though. But you're going to get that like plum tobacco from Michael, but then you're going to get a bit of the leathery aspects of a scent like Michael as well. But the tobacco is handled in more of a Burberry London kind of way, if that makes sense. So like Michael by Michael Kors with Burberry London mixed together. And then the spiciness comes through in a very sort of dry, peppery way. So the plum is never sweet enough to make the scent feel genuinely sweet. And the spices end up being, in my opinion, the primary thing you smell. This is why I'm not calling this a leather fragrance or tobacco fragrance. I'm calling it a spicy fragrance. So if you want a spicy fragrance that has this sort of leather, plum, tobacco backbone to it, and is surprisingly well blended for a company who doesn't really make perfumes. Like I said, they do soaps and stuff like that. So for them to do a genuine eau de toilette, it's surprising, and it's of surprising quality, and I like it. It's called Number 63, Pre de Provence, and you can buy it online. They're from France, but they have U.S. distribution, so yeah, it's a good fragrance, and it's not one that is talked about really hardly at all. Not much. Now, another spicy fragrance I like. This one's going to make you guys laugh because it's a cheapie, but I don't care. You know me, I like my cheapies. I mean, obviously, I own a bunch of Avon, so I must like my cheapies. And it's called Bourbon by Bath and Body Works. It's also relatively new, like the Pre de Provence came out in 2019, I think. This also came out around the same time. Bourbon is a kind of a throwback scent, though, because I remember a lot of men's fragrances in the early to mid 2000s that have this DNA in it. So here this is 2019, basically, and it has like this almost 20-year-old DNA to it. And that's kind of what endeared it to me, why I like it so much. I can't think of anything off the top that's super close. You know, I've got this other Avon fragrance that I'm going to talk about later in the video that's kind of close to it. So I'll save that. Won't quite pull that out just yet, but let's just say that if you've been around the block like I have, and you remember a lot of the like spicy, woody amber things that were around in the early to mid 2000s, this kind of rides closer to them. Now, when I say woody amber, I don't mean like the big, annoying woody ambers that we have now. So don't think I mean like ambrosinide or norlimbinol or anything along those lines. We're not talking those big Amber Max style woody ambers that are real irritating. This is more of a genuinely, you smell wood, you smell amber, right? An actual woody amber. But it goes heavier on the spices, doesn't go really musky. It's not an animalic in any measure of this, any sense of that word. And it's very clean. But you have to like cinnamon. And the name Bourbon is a bit misleading because I don't really get any actual bourbon notes in this. I don't get any kind of whiskey notes, anything particularly boozy. So I'm not sure if they were referring to Bourbon the place, you know, or they just saw a name and said, hey, slap it on the bottle. But it's good. And I have this, the full range of this as well, because, you know, Bath and Body Works likes to sell ancillary products. So I've got body wash, I've got lotion, I've got deodorant stick, I've got bar soap, all that stuff. The only thing that I don't like is the fact that Bath and Body Works doesn't really do shaving things in these scents. They have shaving stuff, but the shaving stuff has its own smell. I would like a mahogany teakwood shave cream or something, you know, or a bourbon shave cream, but they won't do it. So if anyone from Bath & Body Works is watching my videos, that's an idea for you. Make some shave products that smell like your colognes and your body washes. Much appreciated. Now let's get that Avon fragrance I was talking about. So this is an oldie from 2003 called Passion Dance. It's actually rather on the rare side. So this is not one for you to really track down unless you're willing to hunt for it. It's never super expensive when it turns up, but it just doesn't turn up. Because Avon didn't sell a whole lot of this one. They didn't make a whole lot of this one. But it's another one that's kind of rides on the woody amber aspect, but this one is an order of magnitude even more spicy than the bourbon I showed you. And there's a leather note in here as well. So it's another one of those, I want to be a leather, but I want to be a spicy fragrance, but I want to be a woody fragrance, and I don't really know what I want to be. And there were a lot of those in the early 2000s, you know, when they were trying to figure out what the next thing was going to be, right? What's going to be the next big thing for men's fragrances? And they didn't have generative AI and limited, language models to suck up all of the world's data and regurgitate seven-fingered monstrosities and tell you the answers to all your questions in Google and on your phone. So they had to just kind of like guess and take a look at stuff heuristically and go, well, we think this is going to happen. And hell, they were doing that in the 60s, 70s, and 80s too, just without the internet. They would have to collect the data the old-fashioned way from stores and stuff. But someone, I guess, thought that, guys wanted to smell like a woody, spicy, leathery, nondescript, kind of melange of clean and spicy notes that don't really resemble any one thing in particular. Doesn't really feel gourmand because you're not getting any like food recollections here. But yeah, it's actually nice. It's just you're gonna smell this, and it's going to remind you of a lot of things you caught in the air if you were alive like 20 years ago. But you're not going to be able to pinpoint any individual thing. And it's funny because there were a lot of like Axe and Tag and Bodman products that were being made that also kind of had this sort of vibe too. It's just this one is in a glass bottle, so it's a little bit more elevated than a lot of those. And I have a soft spot for it. I don't wear it often, though. I can see why it wasn't a big seller. I really can. There's another Avon fragrance, Friction. This one is a little bit older, so it's from 2000 or 1999. And this one has a much more clear structure to it. So I actually enjoy this a lot more because I can actually recognize the notes. The Passion Dance, I really can't recognize what's going on. This one clearly has clary sage, clearly has lavender, and then a big cinnamon. Big old cinnamaldehyde note in here. So you gotta like cinnamaldehyde or you won't like this. But it's a big old, it's not quite big red chewing gum. It's not quite red hot. It's not that annoying. But that cinnamon note is real front and center. And I like it because the cinnamon note eventually dries down to the lavender and the clary sage and the tonka. It's a drier kind of tonka. It's not a real big sweet ooey gooey. It's not like a modern day gourmand tonka, but the bottle's very silly looking, like most Avon bottles, very silly looking, and it's called Friction with a K. Friction. Friction. They want you to know that it's frickin' freezing, Mr. Bigglesworth. Now, some other spicy fragrances that I really dig. Let's get away from the Avon stuff for a bit, because I could spend all day picking out spicy fragrances from them, since Avon actually has quite a number of spicy fragrances, to be honest. They really do. They have a lot. Let's talk about some of my other favorites that are spicy. And as soon as I can find it here in the cabinet, I will pull it out and show you. But another one that I really enjoy is, let's see, where is it? Where are we at? Yes. Here we go. More relatively modern fragrance, relatively recent, but Velour Boise by Jacques. And this one is sort of spicy in that autumnal way. It's got woods and musks and a really almost like animalic kind of musk too profile in here. A bit on the sour side with patchouli. And just has this really kind of, it's hard to describe, but it's like a really, it's just a really sort of autumn kind of spice. It just feels very cottagey, very sort of Thomas Kincaid painting sort of thing. And I appreciate that because there's not really a whole lot of men's fragrances that veer into this territory. Off again, on again, you get them, but they don't typically stay on the market very long. And sure enough, this one didn't stay on the market very long either. This one got clearanced out at rock bottom prices. This is normally like a $180 fragrance, and I paid like $25 for it. So it gives you an idea of how well it didn't sell, but I really like it. It's a more recent Jacques Foth, part of their Essentials collection. Another one that's really good, if you like spicy, it's classic. I think everyone's going to see this coming. There's not a single person alive who's going to be like, yeah, I'm surprised. Surprised he mentioned this. No one's going to be surprised. Halston Z14. As you can see, I've put a sizable dent in this bottle. I mean, it's almost empty. So it's, if you want to call, if you still want to call that a dent, I don't know what you want to call that. Oh, see, I've got a dent in it. Someone commented on one of my other videos. He said to me, or she, out of gender, I'm not particularly sure, but a person commented on one of my other videos. They're like, oh, I noticed you have a large collection. Do you use any of your fragrances? Was the question. Because they all look full. And then I'm like, is this person trolling me, or are they just seriously asking me a question and don't know how they sound in their head? Sometimes people aren't trying to be mean, they just don't know how they sound in their head. You know, they don't run it back before they type it. So I answered honestly, and I was like, yes, I use my fragrances. But when you have as many fragrances as I do, you don't put visible dents in things anymore because you wear everything only a few times a year at best. So most of my perfumes are going to look 80% full on my deathbed. I will be however old I'm going to live, you know, breathing my last breath, ready to go off to the next life, you know, hopefully be reborn as something with a little more agency so I can do more good deeds with the time I'm given. Yeah, in this current world, with the way things are, I don't really have much agency to make much of a difference. Surviving is all I can do. So, you know, let's roll that nat 20 for the next one. But in any case, you know, I am using my perfumes. They're just not going to show much visible sign of use when there's this many of them. Unless I have a massive change of heart and decide to, like, give away 3/4 of my collection and pare myself down to like 50 bottles, then I might start using each one a little more again. But I owned this back when I had a much smaller collection. So this bottle's been in my life for a long time. Since the 90s, actually. So this bottle's been in my life quite a while. This is one of the early French fragrances bottles. So this is before the Elizabeth Arden was put on the bottom. But this same era of Z14 was the Jeff Gordon era. So around that same time period. So you can call this the Jeff Gordon Z14 if you want to. Smells good enough to me. I've never needed to go all the way back to the Halston Limited era bottles. I know some of you really deep old heads. You're going to get on your little pulpit. You're going to act like Kenneth Copeland, and you're going to like expel the demons, and you're going to sing the praises and, you know, torture the blasphemers and the heretics and burn them on the cross because they use a newer bottle of perfume than you, and that's just sacrilegious. But, you know, put your Bibles away. Sit the fuck down. Because I don't care that much. And this has been good enough for me since I discovered the fragrance. I've never really decided, hey, let's go try to find a bottle from 76, because I'm perfectly happy with this from 98 or whenever this was made. Again, don't really care. But what makes Z14 so interesting is the fact that it does this strange mix of cinnamon, and again, we're talking woody amber. We're not talking woody amber chemicals. We're talking wood notes and amber notes. But it does this woody amber combination, but it does it with a cinnamon, but then it throws in lemon verbena. So you will probably never smell another fragrance in your life, new or old or whatever, niche or designer, that's going to take cinnamon and throw lemon verbena in there. That is such a mindfuck, because you get this lemon verbena sort of sharp, lemony, clean feeling, and then it rides over the cinnamon, and then the cinnamon takes you into this woody amber base with a Tonkin tone musk, or, you know, the fake Tonkin musks. So you get that muskiness from the Tonkin tone. It's like a furry, sort of warm, you know, Tonkin musk is not super smelly. It's not like civet. So you get this like hair of the dog kind of musk in the base with the woody amber materials and the oak moss. And then you get the cinnamon, but then that lemon verbena just kind of like this cuts through it. And it's just so strange. There's nothing really like it. And there won't be anything like it. I will say you want to avoid the brand new bottles, because the brand new bottles just neuter the musks, and the oak moss never got replaced properly with anything else. So they kind of smell like Red Hots. I was joking earlier about Red Hots and, you know, cinnamon big red gum, but that's kind of what the new Z14 smells like to me. So you may want to avoid it. If you're using the new Z14 and you're happy, then don't let me tell you, just keep doing you. I'm not a gatekeeper, so we can be friends. I don't care if you like new Z14. You're allowed to like things. I'm just telling you, if you've never smelled Z14 before and you're going for your first bottle, you might want to at least try to get it, I don't know, before 2011. You want to keep within that era if you can. When oak moss was still listed on the ingredients, that's what you're shooting for. If not older than that, then you at least want that, right? That's what I'm going to say. Now, another spicy fragrance that I really like. Let's see. Okay. This one rides a bit more gourmand. And it's a Harry Fremont composition. And you know I'm a fan of Harry Fremont's work. So, Spark by Elizabeth Claiborne. Spark for Men. This is one of the few times where I think boozy gourmand notes actually work with like a cinnamon sort of ambery base. Normally I'm not a fan of this style because it's done too sweet, too heavy-handed. But Harry Fremont really balanced those gourmand elements within a razor-thin precision. So you get sort of this cinnamon, slightly caramel kind of vibe. But then you get this healthy, like boozy kind of slightly alcoholic interplay with that. And then you get the ambery notes and the prerequisite tonka notes and all the other fun stuff. But this is a Claiborne fragrance, so you're going to get that curved DNA in there too. You know, the curved DNA is going to be your kind of sweet, linalool-ish sort of lavender, but not real lavender. You know, the curved DNA predates the fierce DNA, so you could almost be like, yeah, sort of fierce-ish, but not really. Much spicier and more gourmand than fierce ever could be, but it's that kind of like clean, mall-friendly fougere kind of feeling, but then you're mixing it with the gourmand elements and the booziness and the amber materials, and the cinnamon just stands out again. But another good fragrance if you like spicy. Now let's say you want more of like a dry spicy, right? I haven't really touched upon dry spicy yet, so let's veer in that direction. One of my favorite dry spicy is going to be this vintage fragrance from 1981. The class of 81, the same year, the same graduating class as Koros and Antaeus and Oscar de la Renta and Bijan for Men, and also Stetson, Cody Stetson. These are all 81 class of 81 fragrances. I did a video about the class of 81. It's way back in my catalog, but this one is Cacharel pour l'Homme, and it is just the perfect balance of dry nutmeg and cedar wood and oak moss and dry bergamot. Not much else going on here. If you just want a really dry, in the pocket nutmeg fragrance, then yeah. And it's good in cold weather, but because it's not sweet at all, like zero sweetness, it's also good in summer. It's one of the few times you can wear a spicy fragrance when it's hot outside and it doesn't feel tacky, it doesn't feel cloying or anything. So it's a good one. Another example of dry spice is going to be this guy over here. And it's another example of very nutmeg heavy fragrance. And it's Jacques Homme by Boucheron. This came out in the mid to late 90s. I don't know the exact year, I can't remember. But another one where you get a big dry nutmeg. Except this one is built almost in a Shalimar way. So you get that big nutmeg is accompanied by sandalwood notes, by iris notes. There's lavender, there's bergamot. It is very Shalimar-esque in the way it's put together, but Shalimar does not have the big dry spice the way this does. So it's kind of like a men's Shalimar, but met with more spices. And the patchouli is also kind of sedate here. I wouldn't call it particularly musky either. Definitely vanilla though, so if you're not a fan of vanilla, you don't want to go near this either. This is the Eau de Parfum. I've got the Eau de Toilette as well in a small vial spray for reference purposes. This one has always been the better one for me because it's a cold weather fragrance in my opinion. But if you do want to venture out into warmer times, warmer climate, the Toilette's going to be better for you in that case. But they don't really smell worlds apart, the Toilette and the Parfum. Not really. And the same is kind of true with the other Boucheron fragrance, Boucheron Pour Homme. There's not as much difference between their concentrations as other brands would have it. So other brands tend to make the Eau de Parfum a different fragrance entirely, or make it only like related in a way, but not the same scent at a higher or lower concentration, or a little fresher or a little not fresher. But another dry spice fragrance is going to be this guy, Cartier Declaration. This one is from 97 or 98. Again, I can't remember exactly what year it is. But this fragrance and this fragrance are relatives. So you guys know this. This is Eau de Hermes, and yes, I have the copper top, so suck it. Vintage snobs can suck it. I've got a copper top, leave me alone. And then Cartier Declaration. The story is that Jean-Claude Elena, who was a student of Edmund Runitzka, wanted to do like his version, I guess, of Eau de Hermes. So he kind of did his own twist on the composition and made it a bit cooler, a bit drier, because Eau de Hermes is pretty musky. This is not as musky. So it's kind of like a drier, fresher, more sheer, a bit more lightened up take on the Eau de Hermes style. It's not a clone. Obviously, it's more like a flanker, if you will, but they don't have a flanker. But so then what's even funnier is the fact that this is an Hermes fragrance, and Jean-Claude Elena made this for Cartier, and the success of this made Hermes hire him away from Cartier. So then he became Hermes house perfumer, and then Mathilde Laurent slid into his place at Cartier, which is kind of goofy. So yeah, it's goofy. But if you have this fragrance, you may not necessarily need this one unless you're a big fan. I have both. But like I said, the Eau de Hermes is a muskier, more vintage. It's Runitzka, so you know Runitzka is as Runitzka does. And the Elena is like a love letter. This is like a love letter to it. It's got a lot of dry spices. And it's got a bit of cumin, so the cumin will give you a bit of an animalic feeling if you feel that way. Some people associate the smell of cumin with armpit odor, with BO. I don't, because I eat Mexican food and I'm a grown-ass adult. So when I smell cumin, I think cumin. I don't think armpits. I think tacos. I think refried beans. I think delicious. When I smell cumin, I think delicious. I don't think armpits. Just my personal opinion. You may differ in that area. So yeah, cumin doesn't register to my nose as an animalic musk scent. To me, it's more gourmand, if you want to say that. If you want to consider, like, tacos gourmand. Most folks think that dessert is gourmand, but again, to each their own. And then, last but not least, I'm going to give a shout out to this fragrance right here. It's one of the few sweet, modern, spicy fragrances that I like, and it's Montblanc Legend Night. And it tackles that whole sweet, bubblegum amber. You want to call it the gummy ambers. It tackles the gummy amber, blah, 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 blah. It tackles the gummy amber genre in a way that I can tolerate. So it's not going full-blown, something from Paco Rabanne. It's not going full-blown something from any of those brands that do those kind of fragrances. It's not like Grand Soir by MFK. It's not fully gummy bears in that way. It's still got some cleanliness. It's still sheer. It's still tasteful enough, but it tiptoes into that modern style just enough. And I really like it. And it's spicy. But it's the one modern-ish kind of spicy fragrance that I can throw out there, that I can wear. So, okay, guys, this has been my video on my spicy fragrances. There are many more that I did not mention that I could mention up in the cabinet. Alfred & Hoff is another good one I could mention. A lot more Avons up here that I could have mentioned that I left out. So I have a lot of spicy fragrances. I'm a big fan of spicy, but 35 minutes, you sat through long enough. You don't need to anymore. So Catch you next time, and thanks for watching.